Everyone thought he was weak and useless, with no magic, until one day he discovers a hidden power inside him, and suddenly he's forced to face a deadly, mythical monster. The Iyaka Islands are a group of islands inhabited by humans and strange monsters, and the two sides live together in complete peace. This state of harmony lasted for decades until the disaster struck. One day, an overwhelming rage took hold of one of the monsters, the fire dragon. For no clear reason, this dragon began destroying everything around it, leaving nothing untouched. No one was able to stop it or defeat it. That was when a man named Yanagi appeared, the strongest human of that era. He decided to face the dragon by himself and asked all the island's inhabitants to leave, to abandon the island and take his young son, Yukido. Everyone boarded the ship and left Yanagi alone to face the dragon. Sadly, that was the last thing Yanagi ever did in his life, as he lost his life in that battle. As for his close friend, he sent Yukido far away to study, completely away from the Iyaka Islands, without anyone understanding the real reason behind that decision. 11 years later, we see our hero Yukido grown into a young man. Unfortunately, he lives completely alone, without any friends. No one likes him, and the reason is that when he was a child, whenever he was bullied or harmed by others, an enormous power would erupt around him and injure anyone who got close. This happened more than once, so he decided not to befriend anyone and to live in isolation. That is how Yukido grew up, completely alone. So what do you think, my friend? Will events pass by normally, or will a great calamity turn the story upside down? Well then, follow me. One day, Yukido receives a letter from someone named Ino, telling him, "I am your father's friend. For a certain reason, I sent you far away from your homeland, the Iyaka Islands. But after you graduate from middle school, I will send someone to bring you back home so you can live there and continue your education in your birthplace." Yukido reads the letter, but he remembers nothing about his past and does not know who Ino is, since he was very young when he left the island. In any case, he decides to let things take their course. A few days pass, and the day of his middle school graduation arrives. He attends the ceremony, and after it ends, he steps outside to leave. Suddenly, a young man with green hair appears in front of him and tells him that he is the one who will take him back to his homeland. The young man escorts him immediately, and they board one of the ships heading to the Iyaka Islands. Along the way, the young man introduces himself. His name is Jin. Yukido, meanwhile, sits in a state of complete shock. Shortly after, they arrive at the island and are greeted by two people. The first is Ino, the sender of the letter, and the second is a girl named Muki, the owner of the house where Yukido used to live in the past. Ino and Muki welcome Jin and Yukido and take them to their new home. There, Ino tells Yukido that the man in the photograph is his father, whom everyone used to call Master Yanagi, because he was indeed a teacher who trained people to use their magical powers. He had 3 students. The first was Jin, and the other 2 were his older brothers. Yukido anxiously asks about his mother, and why they brought him back to the island after all these years, and why they sent him away in the first place. Sadness appears on Ino's face as he tells him the truth. Yanagi brought you here one day, and no one knew who your mother was or where she was. He himself was the one who asked us to send you away from the island, and that was his final wish. He instructed us to place you somewhere far away until you grew up and finished middle school, then bring you back to the island again. When Yukido hears this, he feels that they know everything about him, so he asks them about the magical energy. Jin and Ino tell him that he possesses an enormous power beyond description, but it is sealed, and it cannot be released until he first learns how to control it. Muki interrupts them and tells Yukido that he should go upstairs and get some rest. He agrees and heads to his room, but finds Jin behind him, asking him to tell him about his past. Yukido explains that his past is ordinary, and that the only unusual thing was that he had great power as a child, which harmed his classmates, so he distanced himself from people. He expects Jin to listen carefully, but when he turns around, he finds Jin busy on his phone, as if he does not care. Yukido gets annoyed by this behavior, leaves the room, and tells Muki that he is going out for a short walk and will return soon. He goes out and walks among the beautiful plants when suddenly a white creature appears. Yukito does not pay much attention because Jin had told him earlier that these monsters are harmless. However, this creature is different, as a red color appears on it as if it is poisoned. Suddenly, it dives into the water and in an instant transforms into a terrifying form. This is the Arameta creature, different from the peaceful blue meta, as the Arameta is poisonous and extremely dangerous. The monster tries to attack Yukito, but at the last moment, Jin arrives and saves him. He activates his magical energy, leaps into the air, and strikes the monster with a powerful fire attack, but it does not defeat it. The monster rises again, and at that moment Jin grabs Yukito and throws him into the monster's body. This action enrages Yukito. His emotions explode, and a small portion of his sealed power is released, causing the monster to explode and vanish completely. Yukito opens his eyes to find that everything is over. Jin tells him that he threw him into the monster to test his ability to control his power, but he failed. Therefore, he will begin training him during the coming period to teach him how to control his power, after which it can be fully released. However, the matter requires deep consideration because his power is so immense that it could destroy the islands or even the entire world. Yukito agrees, and the two return home, ending the day like that. The next day, our hero Yukito begins his training. When he tries to perform his first spell, he fails. Jin decides that theoretical training alone is not enough, and that he must train Yukito practically by making him fight monsters face to face, as that will develop him better. Indeed, they head to the mission office to take on a task. There, they meet two people who we later learn are also trainees, but under the guidance of Jin's older brother. In any case, Jin takes one of the missions from them, despite their initial refusal. Claiming he was late, he tells them that the mission is for training Yukito, the son of Master Yanagi. The two are shocked by this and confirm it when they see Yukito with their own eyes, then quickly rush to inform their teacher. Jin and Yukito set out to carry out the mission. When they reach the river, the monster suddenly appears before them. Jin is terrified by its enormous size and runs away at full speed. Yukito feels sorry for him and runs after him while the monster chases them. Suddenly, the monster collides with them, and they both fall into the river. An old man saves them using his fishing rod. The two hurry to dry their clothes, and Yukito gets angry at Jin and asks him about the reason for his behavior. Jin dodges the question and tells him that he only retreated to give him a chance to train freely. Yukito calms down and tells him not to do that again. After that, they return together to the monster's location and begin to devise a plan. Jin tells Yukito that he will make him bait for the monster. Yukito becomes extremely angry and objects, saying that he is still a student learning the basics. While they are talking, the monster hears them and approaches, then attacks them with powerful strikes. As usual, Jin runs away quickly, but this time the monster chases him and leaves Yukito alone. Yukito immediately activates a water spell and attacks the monster. Jin realizes his mistake, activates his own magical energy, and attacks the monster, tearing it apart. However, the monster reforms and surrounds Jin, nearly killing him, until another person arrives at the scene. Haru, Jin's older brother. Haru activates his magical energy and delivers an explosive strike that completely destroys the monster. Yukito is amazed by Haru's power and thanks him. Haru tells him that he probably does not remember him, but he is Jin's older brother and was one of his father Yanagi's trainees. Yukito expresses his happiness at meeting him and feels astonished by the number of people he has forgotten from his past. At the same time, Haru punishes Jin for his recklessness and assigns him to clean the river. Then Haru and Yukito return home to rest, and the day ends like that. The next day, Jin wakes up feeling intense pain all over his body because of what happened the day before. He decides to take Yukito on a leisure trip to walk around the markets on the other side of the island. They board the train heading there, and Yukito is amazed by the sight of the train as it moves across the water. They walk around together, but Jin does not have a peaceful day, as he gets into arguments with almost everyone he meets. Yukito ends up leaving him behind and walking on his own. While wandering, he sees a clown entertaining a group of children. Suddenly, without any warning, the clown's ball transforms into a monster that tries to attack them. Yukito intervenes at the last moment and saves them. The monster then tries to attack him. Yukito attempts to activate his spell, but he becomes nervous and it fails. He thinks his end is near. Suddenly, a person appears and attacks the monster with a rapid and powerful barrage of gunfire, finishing it off with a final blow. The man introduces himself as Ibuki and asks Yukito if he is indeed Yukito. He then tells him that he is the third brother of Jin and Haru, and the final disciple of Master Yanagi. He takes Yukito to a restaurant, where they find Jin sitting there, looking completely relaxed. Yukito asks Ibuki about the type of weapon he uses and how he managed to defeat an Arameta monster with what looks like an ordinary gun. Ibuki explains that his weapon is not ordinary, its bullets are infused with magical energy, allowing him to kill monsters easily. He then clarifies that he does not follow Jin's style, Haru's style, or even Master Yanagi's. They purify Arameta monsters from the poison inside them, while he eliminates them completely, leaving no trace behind. Yukito is disturbed by his words and asks him why he kills them. Ibuki replies that merely purifying them allows them to return and attack people again, so killing them is the fastest and safest solution to protect humans. During their conversation, a girl arrives and informs them that the main body of the monster has appeared. Ibuki explains to Yukito that the previous monster was only a small fragment of a gigantic creature. True Arameta monsters possess 2 eyes through which they can be killed, which the earlier monster did not have. Now, the real monster has finally appeared. Ibuki immediately heads toward the monster's location to eliminate it, while Jin and Yukito turn back toward home. Yukito asks Jin for his opinion on Ibuki's method. Jin answers that everyone has their own approach, and that Ibuki's method is the fastest way to save people, especially with the recent increase in tourists. He also explains that there are major conflicts between Ibuki and Haru because of this issue, and that it is better not to get involved between them. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently, and they realize the cause is the monster. They rush quickly toward its location. Without hesitation, Yukito enters the monster's territory and attacks it, but his attack has little effect. Jin pulls him back. At that moment, soldiers begin firing a heavy barrage of bullets to distract the monster, and it becomes clear that they are Ibuki's subordinates. Ibuki finally arrives and begins activating a strange power. Jin realizes what is happening and shouts for him to stop, but Ibuki does not respond. A black light engulfs the area. Ibuki's form changes, and a demonic arm appears. The monster tries to attack him but cannot even touch him. Ibuki grabs its head and tears it off in a single instant. Yukito witnesses the scene, and feelings of fear, anxiety, and shock mix within him. Jin tells him that Ibuki used forbidden magic prohibited for humans, which is based on absorbing the power of Arameta monsters and using it against them. He adds that this type of magic is extremely savage and disrupts the balance of energy. After witnessing what happened, Yukito and Jin decide to return to the island for now to inform Haru of everything that occurred. They leave the area and head to Haru's house. His 2 students welcome them warmly and begin showing them around the place. While walking, they suddenly slip on the ground, and Jin slips with them as well, getting their clothes covered in mud. The 3 decide to go bathe in the hot springs. After that, Yukito goes to Haru, sits with him, and begins telling him everything that happened with Ibuki. Haru responds, saying that to understand what is happening around him, they must start by talking about magical energy. This energy exists everywhere, but it is heavily concentrated in the Iyaka Islands, especially underground. Magic users draw their power from the energy hidden beneath the earth. He then adds, to understand this more deeply, close your eyes and try to feel the energy. Yukito does so and indeed senses an enormous power. Haru quickly wakes him and tells him that humans must not delve too deeply into magical energy, or they will be harmed, and it could even lead to death. Yukito agrees. Haru continues, explaining that what Ibuki is doing is a grave mistake, because forbidden magic destroys the human body and eventually drives its user into madness. Yukito understands this well, thanks Haru, and leaves. As he steps outside, he meets Haru's 2 students, who ask him to train with them for a while. He agrees without hesitation. The 3 head to the garden, where the two students frankly tell him that they see him as a kind person and want to be friends with him. Yukito is overjoyed, as he has had no friends since childhood and lived completely alone. They then suggest that he leave Jin and begin training with them under Master Haru's supervision. Yukito does not give them a definite answer, so they take him to the training ground to practice a bit and measure his strength. The first student, named Chad, plants a seed in the ground and activates his energy toward it, causing it to instantly grow into a plant. Then it is the second student Ammon's turn, and he also successfully performs the same spell. When it is Yukito's turn, he activates the same spell. The plant sprouts, but it does not stop there. It continues growing until it becomes a gigantic tree, then begins producing fruit that falls endlessly. Chad and Ammon ask him to stop, fearing that the place will be destroyed. The biggest shock comes when Yukito tells them that he cannot stop the spell. The tree continues to grow in a terrifying manner. At that moment, Jin arrives and quickly intervenes, teaching Yukito how to control the spell. Within seconds, Yukito manages to stop it. Chad and Ammon are stunned. They realize the extent of Yukito's power and become certain that there is a great secret behind him, as even the greatest warrior's power does not reach this level. Jin and Yukito say goodbye to the two students and return home. Jin does not allow Yukito to rest. Instead, he resumes training him until he masters the water control spell. He then increases the difficulty by sitting on top of a solid water board that Yukito himself creates. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently, and a powerful earthquake occurs. Strangely, Yukito feels an abnormal energy within his body, and the shape of his eyes changes. But as soon as the earthquake stops, that sensation disappears and everything returns to normal. Something seems suspicious, especially with the worry and fear appearing on Haru and Ibuki's faces. Jin tells Yukito that they will continue the training later, and the day ends. The next day, Jin takes Yukito to visit Yanagi's grave. They sit in front of it for a while. Jin appears broken on the inside, but hides his sorrow behind a fake smile. During that time, a large number of people arrive to visit the grave, revealing that Yanagi was loved by everyone. Yukito is surprised that so many people know his father, and Haru begins telling him the full story. He explains that in the past, there were two extremely powerful dragons on the islands, specifically on the small island, the fire dragon and the water dragon. They were bitter enemies and constantly fought each other, but their battles were far from human areas. One day, the water dragon suddenly disappeared without a trace. Since then, the fire dragon's power increased, causing massive underground volcanic activity. One day, the volcanoes erupted, and the fire dragon completely lost control. At that time, Master Yanagi confronted it and managed to seal its power, or rather, calm it down. As for the recent earthquake, it was caused by the dragon's power beginning to increase once again. Yukito understands the seriousness of the situation and says anxiously that the coming days will not be easy. While they are sitting, Jin notices a girl who works as Ibuki's assistant. It is revealed that her name is Ibara. He tries to call out to her, but she does not respond. He then remembers that this day marks the anniversary of her parents' deaths, so he heads to their grave to offer condolences, taking Yukito with him. There, they find Ibara's keys and decide to return them to her. After some time, they head toward the other side of the island. Along the way, they meet Chad and Ammon, who are conducting reconnaissance patrols under Haru's orders. Yukito tells them that he is going to return the keys to Ibara. They immediately realize that she is Ibuki's assistant and quickly leave, following Haru's warnings not to approach Ibuki or his subordinates. Yukito continues on his way and reaches the restaurant he visited earlier. He finds Ibuki there, but Ibuki leaves quickly due to another earthquake and the appearance of more monsters. Yukito sits with one of Ibuki's subordinates and tells him what happened, then asks about the story behind Ibara's family's death. The man explains that a fire monster attacked their home. Despite Ibuki's attempt to save them, it was already too late, and only Ibara survived. He adds that all of Ibuki's subordinates have similar stories they suffered because of Aura meta monsters, which drove them to hate them and desire to eradicate them by any means necessary. Ibara arrives at the place, so Yukito hands her the keys and apologizes if he caused her any inconvenience. She thanks him shyly, and from the look in her eyes, it's clear she was deeply moved by him. Suddenly, a powerful tremor shakes the ground. Jin jumps up in panic and tells them that an extremely powerful fire monster has appeared. Ibara rushes off at full speed. One of the assistants asks Jin and Yukido to follow her, because she loses her mind whenever she hears about a fire monster. They agree and sprint after her as fast as they can. Elsewhere, Ibuki tells Ino that the fire dragon's power is increasing dangerously, and that what happened 10 years ago is repeating itself. But this time, Yanagi is not here. Ino suggests evacuating all the residents of the Iyaka Islands, but Ibuki receives a report that a highly powerful aura meta-fire monster has appeared, so he immediately heads to its location. On the other side, Yukido and Jin arrive at the monster's area. Jin rescues civilians with his magic, while Yukido chases after Ibara, who is charging recklessly toward the monster. Seeing nothing except one goal, to destroy it, she reaches it and attacks, barely managing to block its strike. Then it slashes at her with its claws. She dodges the first attack, but it changes direction and hits her. Ibara remembers the monster that killed her family, and she remembers her father's words as he begged her to run. She decides she will not run away again. She attacks the monster with full force, knocking it to the ground and nearly finishing it off. But it unleashes a devastating fire strike and hurls it at her, and she cannot block it. In that critical moment, Yukido arrives. He activates the water shield spell and manages to block the monster's attack. Ibara looks at him and recalls how Ibuki looked when he saved her as a child. At the same time, Ibara's mind drifts back into the past. She remembers her father and mother's faces at the moment they died, and she remembers the monster appearing and killing them right before her eyes. That day, she sat on the ground powerless, unable even to move, doing nothing but crying non-stop. Then Ibuki arrived and saved her, and the way he looked when he rescued her was exactly like Yukido's appearance right now. Back in the present, Ibara is sitting there, her anxiety growing rapidly. Yukido tells her to get away from the area, but she refuses. At that exact moment, Chad and Ammon arrive. Yukido gets angry and orders them to stay back. But Ibara, without warning, activates her power, leaps into the air, throws a heavy punch at the monster, and ignites the fight. Yukido follows by activating the water barrier spell, trapping the monster inside the barrier, but it shatters the barrier instantly. In the blink of an eye, Yukido begs Ibara to run, but she refuses and insists she will protect the people. Chad and Ammon hear this, realize how wrong it was for them to back down, and decide to fight so the monster won't harm anyone. They activate their power as well and summon tools that look like magical instruments. They attack the monster together at the same time. Yukido attacks with the water shield, and Ibara attacks too, but the disaster is that the monster is not affected. They all try to attack it at once and fail. Then Yukido tries alone as well, with no success. It was clear that this monster's power level was extremely high. At that point, Chad and Ammon come up with an idea, explain it to Yukido, and they execute it quickly. This time, Yukido creates a strong barrier that tightly traps the monster. Chad and Ammon strike with their magic. Then Ibara lunges in with a punch charged with magical energy. In a single moment, she rips the monster apart completely and destroys it. Finally, they think it's over. Yukido checks on Ibara and praises her, saying she was amazing, and that she defeated the monster with a lightning-fast punch. Ibara becomes extremely embarrassed. But at that moment, the shock hits, freezing all of them in place. 3 fiery meteors fall from the sky and crash into the ground, and it turns out they are 3 aura meta monsters. Not one this time, 3. One of them attacks the group. Yukido activates the water shield and blocks the strike, but it seems his energy is starting to run out. Meanwhile, one of the monsters creates a ring of fire that surrounds them, trapping them inside. Thankfully, Haru finally arrives. He attacks the first monster with a brutal strike that tears it into pieces. Ibuki arrives as well, attacks the second one, and destroys it. Only one monster remains. Ibuki fires at it. Haru sees him, and the two exchange looks loaded with anger. Clearly, there is a major conflict between them. Ibuki notices that a part of the monster is still alive, so he moves immediately to devour it and increase the forbidden magic inside his body. But Haru stops him with his power and scolds him, saying, "Are you an idiot? How can you do that? What would you say to Master Yanagi if he saw you using forbidden magic?" Ibuki explodes in rage and screams at Haru, "Our master died because we were weak and couldn't do anything." Everyone is stunned by his words. Yukito is shocked as well. Suddenly, the monster rises again and grows larger. Haru attacks it and cuts off its arms, then Ibuki finishes it. The moment Ibuki sees a remaining fragment, he rushes to devour it and increase the forbidden magic in his body. But Haru blocks him and attacks him. Ibuki then activates the power of forbidden magic and his appearance changes completely. Haru tries to strike him, but the attack has no effect. Ibuki blocks it easily and moves again toward the remaining fragment to devour it. Haru refuses to let him. He attacks again, and this time the blow is stronger and knocks Ibuki backward. Ibuki's fury ignites, and the two clash. At that moment, Jin arrives. He uses water power to destroy the remaining fragment completely, then tells them both to stop, saying that if their master were alive and saw them like this, he would be deeply saddened. His words affect them both. Each of them steps back and moves away from the other. Then Haru and Ibuki leave the place. Ibara says goodbye to Yukito. He thanks her for everything she did and tells her she performed wonderfully today. Her face turns intensely red from embarrassment, and she looks incredibly cute. Then she suggests that they exchange contact information. Yukito freezes, not knowing what to say. She awkwardly explains that she only means it so it will be easier to communicate if they work together in the future, or if one of them needs the other. Yukito agrees and gives her his number, feeling embarrassed as well. Then he turns to the three of them and says that starting today, he hopes to be friends with all of them. He was afraid they would refuse, but of course they agree. They decide to meet again soon, then leave the place and each returns home. The day ends. The next day, our hero Yukito wakes up, and the first thing he does is sit down with Muki and ask her to tell him everything about his father and what happened in detail. Muki agrees and begins recounting the story. She tells him that Master Yanagi was responsible for training Haru and Ibuki, while she took care of them and of Jin as well, because at the time they were still very young. And indeed, that was exactly their situation. Although Haru and Ibuki always had differences in viewpoints, things still went well between them, and they continued training day after day. One day, Haru and Ibuki asked Master Yanagi to allow them to participate in the ritual to calm the fire dragon. To clarify, since the water dragon disappeared, the fire dragon had no restraint, and its power began increasing day after day. So Master Yanagi decided to perform special rites known as the dragon calming ritual, magical procedures meant to seal the dragon's power and keep it under control. But Haru and Ibuki wanted to perform these rites themselves. The master refused their request, explaining that they were not ready yet, that the ritual was extremely dangerous, and that it could not be risked at that time. At first, the two accepted it and did not give it much further attention. Days passed with no major change. Yanagi, Haru, and Ibuki spent good times together, enjoying life, and everything seemed to be going perfectly until the catastrophe struck on that fateful day. Yanagi was sitting as usual, when suddenly the ground began shaking violently. He rushed outside and told everyone he would go check what was happening, and he asked Haru and Ibuki to protect the place. They agreed, and he left immediately. But the tremors intensified and became even more violent, so Haru and Ibuki decided to follow the master. Muki tried to stop them, but she couldn't. Before setting out, they made sure Muki, Jin, and Yukito were safe, placed them in an evacuation vehicle headed to the port, and then raced at full speed toward the volcano. When they arrived, they were surprised to find that the master was not there yet, so they decided to act on their own. They immediately activated the dragon sealing spell, and at first the spell actually began to succeed, but suddenly the dragon erupted in fury and shattered the seal, triggering a massive explosion inside the volcano. Then came the greatest shock of all. The fire dragon appeared for the first time in its complete physical form. Consumed by overwhelming rage, Haru and Ibuki tried to create a magical barrier to prevent it from escaping. At first, they succeeded, but Ibuki's energy ran out, and he could no longer endure. The barrier shattered. The dragon burst out and attacked them. But at the last moment Haru saved his brother Ibuki. Ibuki flew into a rage and screamed at Haru, asking why he saved him, insisting that he should have sealed the dragon immediately instead. At that very moment, the dragon prepared to deliver the finishing blow. Suddenly, Master Yanagi arrived and turned the tide. He struck the dragon with a powerful blow, then in a flash activated the chain spell and restrained it. Ibuki was stunned and asked the master if he intended to seal the dragon by himself. Yanagi answered yes. Ibuki then asked to join the fight, but Yanagi ordered Haru to take his brother and leave the area immediately. Haru looked into the master's eyes and realized how dangerous the situation was. Without hesitation, he grabbed Ibuki, activated a teleportation spell, and left. Thus, Yanagi stood face to face with the fire dragon alone. At the same time, the residents of the islands were being evacuated by ships, as everyone knew. This state did not last long. After just one day, things returned to normal, and the residents came back to the islands, even though the buildings had been completely destroyed. But sadly, that was not the only loss. When Haru and Ibuki returned to the volcano, they found Master Yanagi's body. This was the greatest shock of all for Ibuki. From that day on, he changed completely. All that mattered to him was increasing his power by any means necessary, and his relationship with his brother Haru deteriorated severely. We return to the present, where Muki finishes telling all of this to Yukido. Yukido feels deep sorrow over the tragic events he has heard, but he does not show it clearly. He quietly withdraws and goes to sleep alone, to rest and gather his strength for what lies ahead. We return to our hero Yukido, who, while sleeping, sees a very strange dream. He finds himself submerged in a lake. As soon as he wakes up, Jin comes to him and asks anxiously why he was making those sounds in his sleep. But suddenly, unexpectedly, Jin looks into Yukido's eyes and notices that their appearance has changed. He freezes in shock. Yukido asks him why he is staring like that, but Jin temporarily ignores the matter and tells him that there is nothing to worry about. At that moment, Yukido receives a message in the friends group chat that includes Chad, Amon, and Ibata. They are talking about wanting to go to a festival. Yukido is overjoyed and immediately agrees to go with them. Nearly flying with happiness, it is the first time he has ever gone out with friends. His happiness grows even more when Jin gives him a mask and tells him that everyone on the island wears similar masks during festivals, and that this mask once belonged to Master Yanagi. Yukido feels overwhelming joy and thanks Jin. The two then head together to the festival. Shortly after arriving, Yukido is amazed by the beautiful atmosphere and scenery. They wait for the rest of their friends, and after 5 minutes Ibara arrives. She is wearing very beautiful clothes and looks extremely cute. Yukido compliments her, and she blushes and puts on her mask. The three walk around together until they see Chad, Amon, and Haru, who are preparing some items to sell at the festival. The friends help them, and once they are done, Haru allows his students to go enjoy themselves, while forcing Jin to stay and help him sell. Despite Jin's protests and shouting he has no choice, the rest of the group wanders through the festival, buying things and having fun, and their bond grows much stronger. During their walk, Ibara's foot starts hurting because of her shoes, so she goes to Muki, who is also at the festival, and Muki treats her foot. The group continues on, but suddenly Yukido feels a very strange sensation, the same feeling that haunts him in his dreams. Without any warning, the water around them begins to move unnaturally. Yukido realizes that what is happening is because of him. He quickly distances himself so he won't hurt anyone and keeps running for a long distance until he stops near a tree, hoping the feeling will disappear. But it does not. Instead, it grows stronger. He becomes anxious, not knowing what to do. He remembers the last time he lost control of his power and how Jin taught him a spell to help control it. He tries to perform it and it works. He manages to regain control of the energy. At that moment, he sees a masked figure who tells him that the time has come to learn the truth hidden within him. The person seems strangely familiar, But when Yukito tries to call out to him or learn his name, he vanishes in the blink of an eye. Yukito returns to the festival, convincing himself that what he saw was just an illusion. Suddenly, a massive fire explosion erupts, shaking the ground violently. Fear spreads across everyone's faces. When they try to find out what happened, the horrifying truth is revealed. The source of the explosion is the small island where the fire dragon resides. It is clear that events are about to spiral dangerously out of control. As soon as the explosion occurs, Ino begins evacuating people as fast as possible. Jin sees what is happening, uses his power, and leaves immediately. Yukito tries to stop him but cannot, and no one knows where Jin went. Panic spreads among the residents. Everyone returns to their homes with their families, and the day ends like that. The next day, evacuation operations continue. Elsewhere, Haru uses a spell that allows him to see past events and goes to the tree where Yukito had been standing the previous day. He sees everything that happened. Worry appears on his face, as if he has realized something extremely dangerous. In another place, Yukito is sitting in fear, his eye color changing from time to time without anyone noticing, until Muki comes and calms him down. She tells him that he must leave the island. Yukito refuses, so she asks him to help with the evacuation efforts since he has decided to stay. He agrees, and the two head to the port and successfully help evacuate the residents. On the other side of the island, Ibuki is preparing himself, but his body begins to fill with wounds, and signs of forbidden magic taking over become clear. Ibara asks to go with him, but he refuses. We return to Yukito, who is surprised by the arrival of Haru along with Chad and Ammon. Haru asks to speak with him privately. Yukito goes with him, and along the way Haru stops and stresses that what he is about to say is extremely important. He asks Chad and Ammon if they should leave, but allows them to stay. Haru then tells Yukito that the fire dragon's power is increasing because of the absence of the water dragon. This is a known fact. However, what many do not know is that the water dragon had begun to weaken severely before its disappearance, and Master Yanagi was the first to discover this. Yanagi decided to find a quick solution, and the only solution was to seal the water dragon inside the body of a child, so it could gradually regain its strength while sealed. Yukito is shocked and asks if he is that child. Haru confirms it. To be certain, he casts a spell on Yukito that reveals the truth. The dragon's eye appears, and doubt turns into absolute certainty. Haru continues, explaining that they cannot use this power right now because they do not know how to control it. Therefore, he asks Yukito to leave the island and live in peace, while he himself will attempt to seal the fire dragon alone. Yukito refuses this decision and tries to stop him, but Haru disappears in an instant. Yukito tells Chad and Ammon that the island has become his home, that he has found friends and people who care about him there, and that he does not want to run away and leave everything behind. Chad objects, saying they would only become a burden. At that moment, Ibara arrives and firmly declares that even if they are told to leave, even if they are a burden, it is their duty to defend their homeland until their last breath, and that she will not leave Yukito alone. Chad and Ammon agree with her, and the four decide to stay and fight. At the same time, Haru reaches the crater of the volcano and begins performing the dragon sealing spell, clearly prepared to sacrifice himself. Ibuki arrives as well, willing to sacrifice himself too, but Haru refuses. Suddenly, what everyone feared most happens. The fire dragon awakens from its deep slumber at the peak of its rage. Ibuki activates forbidden magic and charges toward the dragon, but hesitates when he feels its overwhelming aura. The dragon seizes the opportunity, attacks him, and nearly kills him, if not for Haru saving him at the last moment. Haru tries to attack, but the dragon is unaffected. The dragon attacks them both, and they barely evade the strike in time. They then take to the air, surrounded from both sides, and unleash a synchronized magical assault, believing they have finally defeated it. But the dragon is not affected. It lands a powerful blow on Ibuki that sends him flying. Haru tries to pull him back, but the dragon prepares a crushing attack. At that moment, Yukito arrives with the rest of the friends and quickly activates the water shield spell, blocking the strike. Haru and Ibuki are shocked to see them and order them to leave, but everyone refuses, insisting they will protect their homeland no matter the cost. Ibuki then says, "Fine, just make sure you protect yourselves and don't get into direct confrontations." The youths agree, and Haru tells them to be careful. Then he and Ibuki charge toward the dragon and attack. Ibuki starts the assault, but the dragon nearly hits him, so Haru steps in to support him. Then, in rapid succession, everyone unleashes powerful attacks at the same time. Literally everyone, even Yukito and the others. Blows rain down from every direction. But the shocking truth is that the dragon still is not affected. It retaliates with a barrage of flames. They dodge quickly, attack again, and the battle ignites. Haru activates the chain spell, the same spell Master Yanagi used before. This time Haru performs it himself, dragging the dragon back into the volcano in an attempt to seal it again. But within seconds, the dragon erupts and shatters the chains. Ibuki says there is no other solution left. He activates the ultimate forbidden magic, and his entire body transforms into a completely different form. He attacks the dragon with fast, brutal strikes, but the dragon still is not affected. Haru realizes the end is near and that a sacrifice is required. He activates a teleportation spell, preparing to send the students far away. Yukito stands there helpless, talking to himself, "If I have such great power, why can't I save my friends with it? Why can't I save my family and my new homeland? If only I knew how to use it." Before he can finish, Jin arrives. Then we see a flashback revealing that Jin knew from the very beginning about the water dragon sealed inside Yukito, because Master Yanagi told him and treated it as a secret that no one should ever know. One day, as Jin was walking with the master, he asked, "When Yukito grows up, how will he release his sealed power or even use it?" Yanagi replied that releasing the power, or breaking the seal, would be extremely dangerous. But if Yukito grew up and could use the water dragon's power by his own will, things would become much easier. The problem was that using that power requires a spell to be cast on him, a spell of extreme difficulty. Yanagi told Jin, "Don't worry, I'll be there and I'll cast the spell, and everything will be fine." But fate did not cooperate. Master Yanagi died, as we know. So Jin began searching for a solution, because Yukito would grow up, and there would be no one left who knew the spell that would allow him to use his power. Jin eventually found the solution when he discovered Master Yanagi's notes. Among them were the spell's text and the method to activate it. But he collided with a harsh truth. The spell was difficult and required a sacrifice. In other words, for Yukito to use his power, someone had to be sacrificed. From that moment on, Jin decided to learn the spell and cast it himself, sacrificing his life for Yukito. Because the spell was complex, he spent years learning it and preparing for the day he would die. That was why he loved joking around, playing, and enjoying his time, because he knew his life would not last long. It was difficult for him to accept the idea of death. But when he saw Yukito, how he changed from a lonely, frightened boy into a cheerful, happy person, his smile returned. He decided he would not allow Yukito to break again, because Yukito had lived long days in loneliness and fear. Back in the present, Jin stands before Yukito and says, "I can make you use your power. Do you want me to do it?" Yukito thinks for a moment, then says, "Yes, I want to save everyone." Jin smiles and says, "Don't worry." In an instant, he casts the spell. Haru immediately realizes it is a sacrifice spell and tries to stop him. But it is too late. The spell completes, and Jin and Yukito are transported to a different place overflowing with spiritual energy. Jin tells Yukito they have to jump from there. Yukito is terrified, of course, but Jin reassures him, takes his hand, and they jump together. Suddenly, Yukito sees the water dragon before him. The moment he touches it, Jin, who had been holding his hand, vanishes in the blink of an eye. Then we return to the real world and see Jin collapse to the ground without moving, as if he has died. As for Yukito, enormous volumes of water swirl around him, and he transforms into the form of the water dragon. Water floods the entire area. Haru and Ibuki rush to rescue their students, and they all stand at a distance watching. Thus, the water dragon stands face to face with the fire dragon, And it seems what comes next will be harsher than anything before. The epic battle between the water dragon and the fire dragon begins. The water dragon attacks first, the fire dragon responds, and blows are exchanged from every direction. Then both dragons unleash their attacks at the same moment, and the two strikes collide with tremendous force. On the other side, the youths watch in intense fear, unsure whether Yukito, in his water dragon form, will win, and even if he does, whether he will return to normal or remain like this. Questions and fears pile up in their minds, but they can do nothing except watch from afar. During the clash, Yukito notices that the fire dragon seems somewhat afraid. Then he understands the truth. The legends that were told were not accurate. The fire dragon was not evil as people claimed. In reality, it had been a friend of the water dragon, and everything it did was driven by grief and distress it only began destroying after the water dragon disappeared. In other words, it did not love destruction. It was simply lonely. Yukito apologizes to it and tells it that he has returned now. Then he grabs it and returns it to the volcano. But this time the fire dragon has calmed down and is no longer enraged. After that, Yukito returns to his human form, and it seems he has become able to transform between the water dragon form and his human form whenever he wants. Yukito rushes to check on Jin, but finds no breath in him. He sits beside him and calls out again and again, "Wake up, please. You're my dearest friend. I can't live without you. You're kidding me. You'll wake up." But Jin does not respond. Then Yukito realizes the bitter truth. News spreads quickly to Ino and everyone else, and they all learn of Jin's death like a thunderbolt. Everyone is devastated: Ibuki, Haru, Ino, and the entire island. Then the funeral is held. Ino sits in Jin's room, looking at the photos and crying bitterly. Elsewhere, Ibuki meets Haru and asks, "How did Jin learn such a dangerous spell?" Haru answers that Ino found a book in Jin's room, Master Yanagi's notes, which means Jin learned the spell from them. And since the spell is extremely difficult, Jin must have spent his entire life learning it, fully aware that one day he would sacrifice himself. Ibuki hears that and refuses to believe it. He then screams at Haru, "You idiot! Whether Master Yanagi died or our little brother Jin died, it doesn't matter to you." Haru snaps back, "How can you say it doesn't matter to me? The day the master died, my life flipped upside down. I didn't know how to live without him. And now Jin is dead, my little brother, the dearest person to my heart, yet I'm expected to endure everything and endure your criticism too." Suddenly, Ibuki strikes Haru. Haru responds with a powerful slap, and the two brothers fight violently. At that moment, the students arrive. Tears fill Ibuki's eyes as he says that everything he said was meaningless, and that the truth neither he nor Haru wants to accept is that they were weak. They couldn't protect their little brother, and they couldn't even protect their master. Haru is deeply saddened hearing that. Elsewhere, we see Yukito sitting sadly in his room. Muki enters to comfort him. He tells her he is the reason for everything that happened. She assures him it wasn't his fault, it was a written fate, and that if Jin had known another solution, he would have taken it, meaning his sacrifice was the only option. Yukito thanks her, then goes downstairs to see Jin one last time before the burial. There, he finds Ino sitting quietly, saying, "Thank you for everything, Yukito. I only regret that I couldn't say goodbye to Jin. But we must endure, no matter what fate brings." Yukito steps forward to look at Jin. Suddenly, he feels that strange sensation again. His eyes change shape, and he finds himself in a different place filled with magical energy. There, he sees Jin in front of him. Yukito understands the truth. The spell Jin cast did not kill him instantly, but it drained an enormous amount of energy from him. When his physical energy was no longer enough, the spell drew from the energy of his soul, separating his soul from his body. After realizing this, Yukito decides immediately. He rushes out, runs at full speed toward Jin, and in an instant transforms into his dragon form. The youth sense his power, not understanding why he transformed into a dragon. In any case, Yukito heads to the center of the islands, then leaps into that pit. Suddenly, he finds himself in a land overflowing with magic. His mission now is to find Jin's soul and return it to the real world. He begins searching, but the masked figure appears before him. When the figure lifts the mask, Yukido is shocked. It is Master Yanagi. Yukido is overjoyed to see him and asks why he is here. Yanagi replies that the same thing that happened to Jin happened to him in the past, as well his soul separated and remained in this place. Yanagi continues, I made Ino send you away from the island because I feared the fire dragon would kill you, especially since you are the water dragon. You had to lie far away from it. Yukido tells him that this information was not accurate, and that the fire dragon is not evil as they believed. Yanagi replies that regardless, if all of those events had not happened, they would still be living together. It is clear he is sad as he says it, though he tries to hide it. Yukido tells him that Jin is here as well. Yanagi answers that he knows, and that the most important thing now is to find him quickly. So the two begin searching, and after a short while they find him, Yukido gets furious and scolds Jin. How could you do something so reckless? Don't you know what you mean to all of us? Jin looks at him and says there was no other choice. Then Master Yanagi hits Jin on the head and says, you should have let the island burn, that's part of nature. Jin replies that they couldn't do that because the island is their home. Yanagi then hugs Jin and Yukido, says goodbye to them, and pushes them away. Jin begs him to come with them, but Yanagi tells him he cannot. He has been here too long and is no longer able to leave. As soon as he says that, he disappears. Yukido grabs Jin's hand and the two head toward the exit. Seconds later the exit appears, and they pass through it, returning to the real world. Yukido returns to his human form, and Jin returns to his body again. When Ino enters and sees him, he is utterly terrified and says, how is this possible? Are you a ghost? Jin replies sarcastically, I'm not a ghost or anything. And to prove it, bring me a drink too. Ino realizes Jin is real and is overwhelmed with joy. Muki sees Jin and becomes just as happy. Their joy is beyond words. On the other side, the youths see Yukido and are delighted that he returned to his human form. When they learn that Jin came back to life, their happiness grows even more. Ibuki starts joking with Haru and talking normally with him, and it seems the major conflicts between them are beginning to fade. After all of that, life returns to normal on the island. Jin goes back to his usual routine and enjoys his time with his friends. Yukido, Chad, Amin, and Ibara go to high school to continue their education, spending fun time together. Everyone's situation improves, life becomes calmer, and things grow more stable. And that is how our anime story ends.